Agent Jem, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to beat 4 games in a month. Can you do it?
The Gaming Lovers Podcast with Brendo and Jem.
A fine g'day to each and every one of you. It is the 41st episode of the Gaming Lovers Podcast. I am Brendo.
I'm Jem.
And we are the Gaming Lovers, here to talk about games, here to talk about a super special initiative where we try to play more games than we can possibly handle. Is that correct?
Sometimes it works really well. Other years, it's like an impossible mountain to climb, depending on the games that you choose. I think that's the critical thing. And so we have been desperately trying to piece together our 4 in Feb list.
4 in February, where we try to tackle 4 games that have overstayed their welcome on our backlogs, our ever-abundant backlogs, because it's plentiful. We have many games to play, very limited time to do so. Things get pushed back in the priorities list, but we are here to rectify that and clear out 4 games in Feb.
It's very much first world problems right now.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll talk about our discovery of the 4 in Feb initiative, what games we may have succeeded or potentially failed with in years gone by, and what, most importantly, we have chosen to try and tackle in February 2019. But first up, we're going to chat a little gaming goals, as we do.
Gaming goals.
So let's begin with yourself, because you were recently just trying to mellow out a bit, take it easy, see what came your way in the world of Mass Effect, replaying old games just to sort of cleanse the palate, sort of go through the motions, nothing too strenuous to wind up to Feb. How have you been going?
Really well. I finished it. No surprise though. I actually discovered one little interaction that I have never had on any previous playthroughs.
Of Mass Effect 1?
Yes, for the very first Mass Effect. Depending on what origins you choose, will, I guess, change little key interactions or people that run into you that know you from your past. And if you choose a spacer-born, or at least like growing up in space on spaceships, Shepard, then your parents are alive, or at the very least your mum is alive, Hannah Shepard. And you have like a full-on chat with her, or you can, if you go into like the area where you always have like the conversations with the council and things like that. And yeah, I had never triggered that tiny little side quest before. I must not have spoken to the right person on the Citadel to trigger it, to then have that conversation with her about this person. I'm like, oh my goodness. I thought the only time you ever interacted with Shepard's mum was in Mass Effect 3.
Okay, that's what I was going to follow up with. I was about to ask if you have actually experienced that in the other games. I wasn't sure if that was just something I fluked and that you still didn't know about, but I've played Mass Effect far less than you have, so you are by far the defining authority on all things Mass Effect here.
Well, she does email you in number 2. I don't know if there's ever any other interaction beyond that, but I've played that one probably the most and never come across it. But I genuinely thought the only time that they had like a phone chat or whatever, holographic Skype.
A phone chat.
Well, sometimes it's just audio, so it's like being on speakerphone.
It still sounds less impressive than a quantum entanglement communication array. You know what I mean?
True. It's just easier to describe as chatting on the phone. So, yeah, it was a really pleasant surprise to be able to go back and play this and have something new that even after so many playthroughs, like, to stumble across something like that just made me giddy, I guess. I'm like, that's so cool.
That is a very cool story, because a game that you've played as much as Mass Effect, you know it backwards, but the fact that there are so many possibilities in that game, so many different combinations of origin, like you said, which order you do missions, which party members you have with you, there are just so many different ways to experience that game.
Yeah.
And that's what I love in replaying games, especially of that style
Yeah.
is that you can experiment with different party members and different setups and doing things to different results and being a good guy, being a bad guy, being a jerk, being a space jerk. Nothing's better than being a space jerk in Mass Effect.
It is fun. My very first canon playthrough I went through as Renegade. I was like, I had so much fun being a jerk to people.
Is that a reflection on your everyday life?
No.
Oh.
Usually I do try to make decisions that are like me. To be fair, Renegade's not like evil. They're just,
No.
they can't be bothered putting up with people prattling on, and they cut to the chase a lot faster. They'll punch people if, they're a bad guy and they're getting in their way. They'll just be like, shut up, and punch them, So it's gratifying in that sense of, I wish I could just do that, but I shouldn't.
Yeah, Mass Effect has been refreshing in that most games you do have that clear-cut good or evil.
Mm-hmm.
You can be good, the paragon of justice, or you can be evil and cause chaos in the world. Mass Effect, you're still a good guy, still working towards good. It just depends if you do it by the book or by the knuckles on your fist.
Yeah, one's a bit more, I guess, like vigilante-esque mindset if you play as a renegade, and Paragon is much more straight-laced, play by the rules, do things the right way, even if it's the long and hard way.
Yeah.
And they both have their benefits, and you see them play out throughout the course of all three games. So I've started Mass Effect 2 because, of course, I have, and I'll see how far I can get into that before 4 and Feb kicks into gear.
So you finish Mass Effect 1, nice, clean, nothing hovering over your head, waiting to be, oh wait, you've started Mass Effect 2, never mind. Here I thought you were just going to be idling until the excitement of February kicked in, but of course not. Mass Effect is one of those games that's very easy to roll from one entry into the next.
Absolutely it is. And the difference between the first two, my goodness, I'd forgotten just how big of a jump it is as far as graphics and gameplay. They really do feel like two different games. Whereas Mass Effect 2 and 3 play more similarly, so they don't feel as far apart. It always takes a bit of adjustment, like that tutorial level that you do at the very beginning of Mass Effect 2, even though I feel like I've memorized it, like it's still jarring after playing 1 and going into that gameplay style and having to shift my mindset a little bit, going, no, definitely take cover. It's more important in number 2 to take cover. You can't just stand there like you can in number 1 in some fights.
Yeah, and without a doubt, I already know 100% the answer to this question. You're probably going to pursue the best romance option available, being Jacob.
It's a risk, but the prize. Oh my gosh, it's like the worst romance option of the entire... Well, there's Ashley, but I don't think I've ever in any gameplay attempted romancing her, because I just can't... There's some characters that grate you. For me, Ashley, unfortunately, is one of those characters. Like, just... She doesn't usually make it past...
Okay, we're going to move on from this. Otherwise, this will be our 16th episode of Jem Gushes over Mass Effect for half an hour. So I will now take the reins and discuss what I have been playing this week.
And so it's your turn to gush.
Oh, I intend on gushing. I have played a great mini game this week. Great mini game. I accused you of being silly for your beating Mass Effect 1 and moving straight on to Mass Effect 2 with the short time we have left for January. I may be currently playing 4 games before Feb. The 4 before Feb. Let's start with The Forest, which I have been greatly enjoying. Cooperative online gameplay in a survival
with your
world.
buddy, the Falcon.
My good buddy, the Falcon. If you're going to mock me, at least do it right. Myself and the good buddy, the Falcon, have finally discovered what was at the bottom of that sinkhole. Our swipe card worked. We got through the door that was obstructing us. I'll admit, didn't expect to find what we found down there, and we successfully completed our game.
Did you rescue the kid?
I'm not involving any spoilers in this. but I was surprisingly satisfied with how in-depth the ending was. With a game like that, where the story doesn't really feel like it's at the forefront, it's more just like oh yeah, you're building huts, you're hunting food, you're crafting equipment. By the way, your objective is to find your child.
Mm-hmm.
It always seems like by the way, this is why you're here, but it's not really important. The fact that the whole end game of this was actually really involving and the scenes that played out were quite surprisingly good. It just surprised me for a game like this. I didn't expect there to be that much story, and I really dug it. So I give The Forest a big thumbs up. It's a game that I intended on just playing and moving on, but those are the sort of trophies that I might want to come back to and try to get. The fact that you unlock special modes after you beat the game, where you have basically unlimited health and unlimited building resources, is kind of fun too. So I'm going to build the biggest treehouse fortress that you've ever seen. It's going to be great. That is The Forest. Congratulations. Whoever made that game, thumbs up from Hyper Brendo.
Well, congratulations to you and your good buddy, the Falcon, for beating it.
Now, another game that I have, I guess you'd say, be ready to move on from in the wind-up to February. Hitman 2, I have greatly enjoyed continuing to do the little mini-missions in that, successfully unlocking new equipment and things. Excellent fun. I also successfully did a elusive target just last night, which I felt so proud about because you only get one shot at those, no saves. They don't get highlighted by your vision, so you don't know where they are in the level. It takes a lot of cautious play, but I successfully eliminated the person and got the notebook that they had, and I was very happy, and I was quite chuffed at my own abilities.
So chuffed.
So chuffed. Hitman 2 is still a top-notch entry in that series. I love that to death. What else I've been playing is Yakuza 0.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm trying to blast through these rather quickly because there will be a lot to talk about the fourth game that I've been playing recently. Yakuza 0, you'll be so glad to know that I've moved on from the arduous, time-consuming minigame that I greatly enjoyed of the real estate industry.
Yep.
And I've now moved on to the arduous, time-consuming, wonderful minigame that I enjoy of cabaret club ownership. I have been having so much fun managing and operating my very own cabaret club. You may know it as a host club. It's basically to wring every last yen out of the poor suckers that walk through the door.
Yes.
Make the employees that I have there pretend to be interested and make them want to spend their money on them for affection. There's nothing seedy about it. It's all above board.
Until someone breaks a vase.
Yeah.
Or vase. Vase or vase.
Well, it depends on where you're listening to this podcast from. But I have moved forward in the story, but that sort of, prevented me from getting as far as I'd hoped because it's another minigame that is time-consuming that I'm greatly enjoying. But Majima's story I find to be a little more higher stakes than Kiryu's. So, I enjoyed Kiryu's story, and that got to a plot point where I'm like, I can't wait to see what happens next. But it seems every time that Majima's story progresses a notch, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. So 2 thumbs up from that as well. But the main event, I could not contain my excitement at a certain game that came out this week. I could not contain my wallet from spilling money out to purchase a game completely without my authority. Last week's episode, we talked about the Resident Evil one-shot demo for Resident Evil 2, and how that was a game that I was on the fence about, loved the demo. I may have bought the game on launch day, which is kind of foolish when I'm trying to clear the backlog in February, and 5-6 days before the month's over, I go and buy another game.
So I'm guessing you're just going to be playing video games and not going to work this week before February starts?
Well, hopefully none of my employees or managers or anything hear this podcast, because there may be some sick days coming up. I think I've caught something. It may be the T-virus, which was in Raccoon City. And no, I don't actually use sick days to have video game days. But that's not important. You know what's important? Resident Evil 2, which all I needed to see was that the review scores were successful, that the scores were through the roof, that people were loving it, that the one-shot demo convinced a lot of people to buy it. I love it to pieces. I have been rather terrified, I have to admit. There has been moments in this game where I have felt completely in control. In particular, when I retraced the steps that I covered in the one-shot demo, because I knew where the jump scares were, I knew where the zombies were going to come out of, and I knew where the items were. Except that the items aren't in the same place as they were in the demo. That made me a little off my comfort zone. Yes, off my game, I had it all under control until that happened. And then you expect things to be the same as they were in the classic Resident Evil 2, and then they're not, which puts you up another level of nervousness. And then just as I started to feel confident because I had plenty of ammunition, plenty of health items, the game threw a little curveball at me that I will not spoil, but if you've played the game, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. I am suddenly panic-stricken. I am playing with surround sound headphones, so there's a certain sound that I can hear sometimes from the left and sometimes from the right, and I never know when to exit a nice safe room. And, whew, it's great, but the last time I played, I couldn't wait to make it to a save room and stop, which is probably the biggest praise that you can give a horror game. Now, this is not something you're going to play.
No.
Not after your reactions to the one-shot demo that we did.
No, that was more than enough. Thank you very much.
But my goodness, I have had a great week of gaming. I am smiles all around. And yes, I indeed do love 4 in February, which is going to be coming up with our main discussion topic right after this.
Share the love. Follow us on Twitter at Brendo Jem. That's BRENDOJEM.
Well, it's 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready, and 4 in Feb.
Let's rock. Let's rock some video games.
It is exciting times. I look forward. It's so weird because the 4 in Feb initiative that we know and love in our personal lives that we're getting to share this year on our podcast, it puts a bit of pressure on to actually charge through these games. There is no backing out once you choose your 4 in Feb. And I love it for some strange reason.
It is the month of backlog busting. So the initiative started a few years back now and was basically a few guys that wanted to help motivate people to clear the games that were on their pile of shame, on their backlog, whatever you like to call it.
Yeah, I discovered it in 2015. Polygon.com had an article based off joystick.com, that's joystick with a Q, from the year prior when I think they may have started the 4 in Feb program then. And because February usually has 4 perfect weeks, it's perfect for playing 4 games in Feb. Clear that backlog, get them out of the way, make sure you've made your money's worth for the games you may have already spent money on, and currently they're just a sunk, lost cost.
Sitting
that
on
was
the
hard
shelf.
to say.
Sitting on the shelf, collecting dust, or maybe taking up space on that precious hard drive or in the cloud storage. A game that you've wanted to play or that a friend maybe has recommended you play and you got it, but you never got around to playing it because, you know, there's other things that come out and completely distract you, which happens to us a lot.
Absolutely. If you're the sort of person who basically buys a single game and plays it for 6 months at a time and then is satisfied with their progress in that and puts it on the shelf and then buys another game and repeats the process, this probably is not the initiative for you. But if you are like myself and can't pass up a good bargain, and with sales in store, and then you've got digital sales on the online stores that are always tempting, you think, oh, I'm not going to get that for that price again. I should probably buy that right now. And even though I won't play it for a few weeks, I'll get to it eventually.
Or years.
This happens to me so frequently where I go, okay, that's it. I am on lockdown. No more buying games until that one sale pitches a price at me that I can't say no to. And I crumple in my own convictions to not buy any games. The other reason my backlog gets so big, and you personally have contributed to this, I hold you partially responsible, my dear.
Yeah.
is that when it comes to my birthday or to Christmas, usually Brendo's easy to buy for.
Mm-hmm. Video games. Although you didn't get any for Christmas this year, you can't get mad at me.
No, which thank goodness for that, because you've seen the size of the backlog.
That hasn't stopped you from buying your own game.
Resident Evil. Gotta buy it on launch day.
So before we get to the games that we have finally settled on, and thank you to those who have helped us out, whether through messages on Facebook or Twitter, with your votes as well that have been made on polls. They have all been taken into account as well for our final 4 in Feb.
Mm-hmm.
And we will reveal them very, very soon. But we just wanted to go over some of the stuff that we did in our early years as we took on this initiative, and how well our success or failure rate has gone with these as well, because we haven't necessarily always succeeded every year in completing the 4 in Feb. And other years we've shot it out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to reflect back. The very first year that I ever did 4 in Feb was the year that I first ever played 999.
9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors.
An incredible game. And as soon as I posted the picture on like the group chat, there's a page on Facebook, a community of people who like share what games they're going to do for Feb.
Yep.
And then they cheer each other on. And as soon as I posted the picture, I got so many comments going, "How have you not played that game? It's amazing." And I'm like, well, I'm going to play it now, so calm down.
Now, this is what's cool about the dynamics that you and I share in the 4 in Feb, is that for me, I have such a wide taste in games that normally I know what I like, and so I buy a lot of games.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to go, oh, crap, I've got so many games that I haven't played yet, I better play 4 in a month. Whereas with you still are pushing those boundaries of where you're comfortable in the gaming landscape.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, your 4 in Feb is trying things that you would normally not so much go out of your way to try without suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
And I adore that about your 4 in Feb. I get more excited sometimes about what you're doing for 4 in Feb than what I'm doing.
Now, the very first year, I was, I think, a little too ambitious. I had a lot of very long time frame games. So I think I did 3 and 4 because I had a couple of visual novels. So it was 999. There was Virtue's Last Reward, which is the direct sequel to 999. And I had Kingdoms of Amalur.
So, hang on, you got 2 very lengthy visual novels.
Yes.
A lengthy Western RPG.
Huge. And I did not finish that one. I finished the others, and there was a third. I can't remember that off the top of my head, and I couldn't find the image. But I could remember the other 3. And I know I completed those 3, but Kingdoms of Amalur, to this day, I still haven't finished it. I've even gone back to try to finish it. And because I love the world that it's in, like I can kind of get into it for a little bit, but it's hard for me to keep the momentum up because with open worlds that don't have enough story to push it forward, it feels a little repetitive sometimes and a little boring without party banter and stuff like that. So I missed that and struggle with those aspects, especially being such a huge Dragon Age fan. Like going to anything else that's similar to it but doesn't quite hit that benchmark for me, I immediately go, oh, this isn't as good. But I do love Kingdoms of Amalur in the sense that, you know, it's a world that was built by R.A. Salvador, who wrote The Legend of Drizzt, which incredible, like Dungeons and Dragons-esque story.
Not even esque. It's in the
like,
Dungeons and Dragons
it is that
world.
Yes. Incredible story. And so you can see like hints of that throughout it. So that is very, very cool about that game. But yeah, I still
Don't feel
I still
bad.
haven't finished it.
Don't feel bad because I even tried to play Kingdoms of Amalur once and I got further than you did and still didn't beat it. So what does that tell you?
Oh, that Natalie is the only one who's been able to beat it, right? Out of our
Respect,
circle.
Nat. Respect. Now, I first discovered 4 in Feb in 2015, and I used the opportunity to launch into it headfirst with Killzone Shadowfall, which is a game that I got with my PS4. And if you're anything like me, when you get a new console, you will buy 4 to 5 games immediately, so you have a library to start with. And more often than not, 3 to 4 of those games go unplayed for a long time because you're like me and buy mini games. So that was one of them. I got through it. I loved it. Shadow of the Colossus HD on the PS3, which I'd heard so many good things about. I had to play and never really got around to it. I had it on my shelf. I played it and I loved it. Professor Layton and Phoenix Wright in the same game, well, you've got my attention. I played through that and I loved it. And then I also attempted to play, and here's my first mistake, Be Forgiving, because this was my first ever 4 in Feb. The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. A bit lofty. That's a game that is far too long to try to do in approximately a week, because that's all you really have for those sort of games. Yeah, it wasn't a smart choice. I never actually beat it because its main story itself lasts about 38 hours. And if you want to try and do everything, it's about 59 hours. And so straight out of the gates, my first ever 4 in Feb, I failed because I did 3 and a bit. So they're not all success stories.
No.
But I still got through 3 games out of my backlog. And then I never actually beat Skyward Sword, I don't think. It was the phase of the Zelda games that I didn't really enjoy to the best of their abilities. Let's put it that way.
One thing we would recommend if you were thinking of taking up the challenge with us this month, this 4 in Feb, is trying to find a balance as you choose your game. So as you go through your backlog, find maybe one big one that will be maybe the meat, the one that's a slow burn, I guess, throughout the course of the month.
Yep.
And find a few others that are easier to beat, faster plays, things that will give you a bit of momentum, because if you can finish something quickly in that first week, even that first day, it helps you so much to be like, hey, I've beaten something, and to tick it off and move forward.
Yeah. My main 2 resources, if I'm trying to decide whether to play a game or not, or even to buy a game or not, is to check out GameRankings.com for its average review score. You can also use Metacritic. That's just if you want just a blanket, widespread, average review score with no spoilers, no specifics. Very handy if you're trying to go as blind as possible, but still want to know if a game's worth playing. The other resource I use a lot is howlongtobeat.com. HLTB and a game name into your Google search engine or Bing or whatever you'd like to use. Perhaps you're a Binger. I don't know.
Sure, that's banned in China. Just little factoids I know. Keep going.
HLTB, and then whatever the name of your game is, will tell you the rough estimated average time to beat, which can be very handy when you're trying to piece together 4 games to realistically beat in a month. What other games have you tried to do in your 4 in Feb?
One of my more successful runs in 4 in Feb, this was a couple of years ago, I did the Uncharted trilogy. I had played Uncharted 4, I think, before that. And I'd watched you play the other 3
Yes, you had.
when you went through them. But I'd never actually played them myself. So we had the Uncharted trilogy when they re-released them in HD as a pack set. We got that as well because we're addicted to buying games, apparently. And
if that's not obvious enough from this very episode's premise.
So I flew through those, and I also played Steins Gate 0 and bawled my way through that one, which is the sequel to the first Steins Gate game, which is also amazing. Visual novel and incredible anime. One of the few animes based off a video game that does possibly a better job telling the story than the video game does. So just a little nod at that. I think we've mentioned that before in a previous episode. So that was a very successful run for me. I think that was about 2 years ago that I did those.
Sounds about right. My other history with 4 in Feb, 2016, I went through the awesome foursome that was Zack and Wiki on the Nintendo Wii.
Oh, you had some shockers that year. I remember it was like your flops.
That was a game that I absolutely hated playing, but I still was determined to beat it. It's a game that got recommended to me by a friend. Maybe our preferences don't quite align as much as we thought.
Are you still friends with them?
Yeah, roughly. I'd say we are. But it didn't quite click for me. It was a frustrating game. I battled through it. I also played Splinter Cell Blacklist, which I had a vendetta against because I tried to play it twice, and the game froze at the end of the first mission twice. So I was determined to get past that hump and beat it. I greatly enjoyed that game, but I still was very nervous when I got to the end of that first mission on my 4 in Feb. The other 2 games I did in 2016 was the Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay. Stop me if you've heard this before, but when I first bought my PS3, I bought about 4 to 5 games. And the thing is, with those games, usually about 3 to 4 go unplayed. This was one of them. So I have this habit when I get a new console to just load up on games and then some just never get played.
Or played once, like you get through the tutorial level and go, okay, so that's how it goes, and then I'll come back to it.
Yeah,
and it never gets any further.
That's pretty much exactly what my Chronicles of Riddick experience was. A game that's based on the Vin Diesel movie franchise. Vin Diesel, a big gamer, and actually has his own video game studio. Little factoid for you. But the biggest one that I had the greatest vendetta against, and there is a theme with my 4 in Feb qualifications. One of these games usually has a vendetta that I have a massive grudge against this game, and this year was probably one of my all-time biggest black marks on my backlog, and that was the PS2 game Project 03, The Tormented. A game I bought on launch day and, 6, 7 years later, had not played.
You could have bought it for so much cheaper rather than buying it at launch.
I love the Project Zero series. It was a game that I was never quite in the right headspace to play, whether I was too scared to even try it or too busy and distracted by other things. But I finally got through that and I enjoyed it and only had minimal scares. So I worked myself up for nothing.
Oh, speaking of scares, I can remember from 4 in Feb, I can't remember all of the games from that year, but one that I do remember, and I remember not enjoying because of the scare factor, was Danganronpa Ultra Despair Girls. That messed with me. I mean, those games mess with me anyway, and I would still love them. It's one of those sick things, like, they're so good and they're so well written and so engaging, like, it's even with the disturbing content, like, I still recommend them to people, even though I struggle with certain things that haunt me a little bit still. And that game...
Well, the difference between the main Danganronpa games, which are more sort of whodunit, visual novel, sort of maybe even with a pseudo-dating sim element added in.
Yes.
But then the spin-off is a third-person shooter set in horrifying environments with bears that jump out of nowhere and go shing with their big bladed claws.
And having little kids running around creepily singing and killing all the adults. That's not what you want. There's just nightmare fuel in that game. A really powerful story, though, and some beautiful moments in it, but I struggled and I didn't want to put that on my list. That was one of those times when you put your foot down, you're like, you are going to play this game because it is good, and you're going to play it, and you have to play it before you can play the next game in the series, because I think V3 was around the corner, and you were like, you have to finish this first before you can move on.
It's important to the plot.
And I think also there was the animation that was coming out too, and you're like, what if there's spoilers? So... that was one of the things that I was like reluctantly put on my list. There's been a couple of those where I'm like, I don't want to play this, don't make me. But that said, I think there's been very few times when I've ever truly regretted making myself finish a game.
Yep.
You know, I haven't had anything anywhere near as bad as yours with broken games.
As far
and
as the
things.
quality of the game.
Yes, you choose some truly horrific things. There was one time you were playing through things on the Wii. Was it the Wii or the Wii U? And the controls on that were so horrific. I was tortured just watching you try to play this game.
Just you wait, it's coming up next.
Okay.
Another example of you pushing yourself outside your comfort zone to try a new genre or a new entry in a series, departing from where you are comfortable in and expanding your boundaries in the gaming world.
Yes, and I want to do that again this year. Last year, I don't think I did any. I think because we had a big trip planned for the last half of February that we basically said we're not going to be able to finish 4 games in Feb, so we'll just try at least one. But I don't think we I know I didn't actually put together a list for last year, so I think I skipped 2018.
Well, I'll tell you my 2018 success stories in a moment. And that's a complete lie because it was disastrous. 2017, though, I tried another 4 games, one of which I absolutely loved when I played it first, but then stopped abruptly, and I have no idea why. Have you ever done that with a game where you're playing it and you are having a great time and you just go, I'll just put this down just for today and I'll just play this other game for now, and that's all you play for the next 6 weeks?
That happens to Persona Q, that's happened to it twice.
Well, for me, that was Pikmin 3 on the Wii U. Pikmin, I've loved that series since I first saw it, since I first played it. Pikmin 3, I loved it, and I don't know why I stopped. So I decided, no, Pikmin 3 deserves better than this. It'll go on my 4 in Feb 2017. And yes, I said 4 in Feb, but it doesn't matter.
I was going to let it slide.
Another game that I played in 2017 for my 4 in Feb, a series that I bought because I liked the developer. And I wasn't sure how I'd enjoyed the gameplay, and that was Trauma Center, developed by Atlas. Became a big Atlas fan about this time because of their work primarily in the Persona series, but their other projects like Catherine I loved, a lot of different things. So I thought, well, it's got the same sort of art style, the same composer from the Persona games. I'll give Trauma Center a go. Didn't click as nicely as I'd hoped because the gameplay is completely different. You're using your Wiimote to do surgeries with little fiddly actions.
Sounds like Surgeon Simulator, but, with the unintentional bad controls.
Yeah, that was rough. I got through that one and I soldiered on, and yet it still was not the worst game that I played in 2017's 4 in Feb. That honour goes to... Do you know how much it pains me to say this?
Sonic.
For some reason, I am compelled to buy bad Sonic games because it's Sonic the Hedgehog. And I collect things that are Sonic the Hedgehog. And so I bought a lot of Sonic the Hedgehog games that I hadn't played yet, one of which was Sonic and the Black Knight, which, if this doesn't sell you on the game, nothing will. Sonic the Hedgehog gets sent into a storybook of King Arthur and becomes the chosen one with the sword in the stone or something. I don't even remember. I've repressed the memories, but I beat the game and it was terrible. And I never intend on playing that again. And the 4th game I chose in 2017, and yes, it may in fact be the last successful game that I've beaten in a 4 in Feb, because 2018 was disastrous. Titanfall 2. Which, another game that was fantastic and thankfully redeemed the entirety of 2017's February gaming. Now, stop me if you've heard this before, but when I first got my Xbox One, I bought about 4 to 5 games. And the thing is, about 3 to 4 of those games go unplayed. Titanfall 2 was one of those. A game that I didn't actually play the first one because it was a multiplayer-only game. But the campaign in Titanfall 2, the single-player campaign, fan-freaking-tastic. And I put my stamp of approval on it, and thankfully it was a good game, because otherwise I may never have played games again after that month. So, thankfully, I enjoyed that in the end. 2018, however, was not so successful.
No.
Now, I did try to set up a 4 in Feb. We did have your holiday set up. It was for your birthday, so you're to blame completely. And not only that, I was working on a side project for her birthday, which ate up every spare second of my life for the first 2 weeks of February. I set up Wolfenstein The New Order, a game that I'd bought the Boxing Day sale the year previous. Guardians of the Galaxy, a Telltale's game series. I thought that's easy to beat. Psycho Pass Mandatory Happiness, a shortish visual novel on the PlayStation Vita. And Batman Arkham Knight, a game that I loved that series and thought, how could I not play this? I didn't beat any of those games, and I'm horrified to say, as we roll around to 2019, I still have never beaten any of those 4 games.
I have. At Guardians of the Galaxy, I think we've covered that on Gaming Goals here on the Gaming Lovers podcast.
I did 2 of those episodes and then didn't play anymore. Batman Arkham Knight I played the most of out of those 4, but I didn't do it. Couldn't do it.
I'm sorry, hun. That's my fault.
So that is why 4 in Feb 2019 is so important to us this year, because we're both bouncing back from an abysmal defeat. The time may be near for us to reveal what we've chosen to tackle in this all-important redemption arc storyline of 4 in Feb 2019.
You're listening to the Gaming Lovers podcast. Want to join the conversation? Visit thegaminglovers.com. Record your comment or question by clicking on the button on the right-hand side, and you could be featured in the next podcast.
Thanks again to everyone who has voted and helped contribute to our decisions as far as 4 in Feb for 2019 is concerned. We have taken them all into consideration and done our best to have a diverse group of games for our selection this year, for what games we are challenging ourselves. And we would love to know if you're going to join us in the challenge for 4 in Feb. Choose 4 video games on your backlog that you would like to wipe clean. It doesn't matter if you've already partially started it or if you haven't even touched it once at all. Whatever it is, so long as you can finish 4 games in Feb and want to pick up the challenge with us, we'd love you to join in the conversation. Tweet us. You can send us messages on Facebook or at thegaminglovers.com. Let us know what you're doing, and we will encourage each other and help, motivate each other.
I believe in you. And that is important.
The
encouragement's important. But
It is.
I also like that you mentioned that it doesn't matter if you haven't started a game fresh, because personally, I like to try to do 4 games start to finish, whether I've failed to start them in the past or not. But that's just my personal preference. You can do a game that you've already done 70% of. You're still going to beat it in Feb. That's
Exactly.
fine.
The whole point is to get it off your backlog and say, yes, I've completed it, done. You don't have to get like 100%. It doesn't have to be completionist. It just has to be like beat the main story aspect kind of thing.
Imagine that. 4 platinum trophies in Feb.
If it was a visual novel, even doing 1 story run from beginning to end would count as beating the game. You don't have to do all of them. It depends on how you see it as a finished game, I think is what it comes down to.
Agreed.
So, with that in mind, let's go through our 4 in Feb. So, your first game, in no particular order.
Well, my first game, I'm actually aiming quite lofty as far as the time to beat certain games. Kingdom Hearts 3 is on our doorstep as we speak.
Yep.
Like, it has finally arrived, and my brain still can't comprehend that is here. I'm not ready for it. It is not a game that I'm going to be able to purchase day one, because I play Kingdom Hearts for the story. Among other things. I mean, running around with Goofy and Donald is another. But I want to try and play games that I have not beaten in the storyline yet. And I am up to Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep Final Mix HD. Just keep that name going.
It's so long.
Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep Final Mix HD Plus Ultra.
Plus Ultra.
A game that I have on the PS3 in the Kingdom Hearts 2.5 HD collection. Kingdom Hearts games and their names is so confusing, but it originally came out on the PSP. I don't have a PSP, and it was never available on the PS Vita's online store. I do have it on the PS3. I have never played it, and it's a game that I have surprisingly stayed in the dark about as much as I can for this long. I'm amazed that I've been able to avoid any information about this game. I have no idea what world you visit. All I know is that there is main characters introduced in this game that are important to the entire plotline. And so, although it's about a 28-hour game, and that should be your first warning light, bit lengthy for a 4 in Feb game, but I am determined to tackle that as hard as I can. Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep Final Mix
Plus
HD.
Ultra. Did you know, side note, that there is a My Hero Academia video game.
My Hero One's Justice.
Sadly, it's not dubbed, but still, it looks like fun. Anyway, so that is not on my 4 in Feb because we don't have it. But I wanted to choose things from different consoles and platforms, etc., to be represented on my 4 in Feb. Like I said, I wanted to stretch myself, and thanks to some suggestions on social media, my first, that I'm necessarily playing this first, but my first game for my 4 in Feb is Papers, Please.
Papers, Please.
It's an
Great
oldie
choice.
but a goodie. You've played this.
I have.
I don't know if you've beaten it.
Well, I made the mistake of playing not on easy mode, and the game is not on easy. Let's put it that way.
But that one, I figure I can have it as like my short burst game. I can get it done in a day and enjoy that.
If you like bureaucracy, this is the game for you. Processing paperwork. Doesn't that sound like a fun way to spend your time?
Hey, there are plenty of other mobile games that have very tedious kind of jobs that you do, but that become addictive. And I know that Papers, Please has that kind of quality to it. So I think I might actually flourish in this game, maybe better than you in that sense.
Well, don't
Possibly.
count your chickens before their paperwork has been processed, because it's not a game you can play mindlessly. You will need to pay attention to the details on those passports, on those documentations.
Yes.
Make sure that you don't let evil people in with bombs over the border. But yes, a great game, and I am very pleased that you're actually trying that.
So that's going to be my first one. And thankfully, because it's short, it means I can have something a little beefier in my 4 in Feb too. So what is your second game on your list?
Well, to prevent mine from being too beefy that I can't handle it, because I've got the lengthy Kingdom Hearts game, I decided to offset that with something short and another game that I have a vendetta against because I've tried it twice and have not successfully played through it, and it's a short game. So what does that tell you with my commitment issues? Oxenfree is a game that I originally purchased on my laptop, and yet my laptop can handle the HD graphics of, say, The Witcher 1, which admittedly is fairly old and not that high-tech. But a game with an art style of 2D, almost cardboard-looking people, my laptop can't do for some reason. So I had to buy it again on the Xbox. So now I've bought a game twice, and I have never beaten it, despite trying it multiple times. So that is my Vendetta award, goes to Oxenfree, a game that has a little bit of a spooky atmosphere. It's not exactly a horror game, but it's more like a story you'd tell at a fireplace at a camp, something like that. So, Oxenfree, I'm going to beat it in February. That's my guarantee. And I've chosen a small game to offset the big game to increase my chances of actually doing 4 in Feb.
Okay. Guaranteed, huh?
Guaranteed. Oxenfree, I'm going to beat.
Okay.
With a stick if I have to.
Sounds like you'll be starting with that one then.
What else is on the menu for yourself?
This one is one that I have partially done, but that I got distracted from. And so I've talked about it before on Gaming Goals, and that is Period Cube. It still grosses me out to say that.
No shortage of ideas here.
But I have done, I think, at least one story arc in it, but there's still a lot of questions. I haven't gotten to the true ending for the story. And for me, that is when I've beaten the game, you know. So I could have written it off and said, look, I've done this. I've finished this story arc, so therefore it's done. But I like to get the full story because there's still a lot of questions and mysteries. And unless all those questions are answered for me, then I haven't finished the game. So, but jumping into that, I don't feel guilty, like jumping into it partially started, you know.
Well,
it's different
should
than...
you.
So that's why it's on this list, and I will beat it in February. So, Period Cube.
Excellent. Well, as your husband, I'm here to support you and help you as you try to process Period Cube in a 4-week cycle.
Just make sure there's lots of chocolate on hand, okay?
Oh, how do we follow up from that one?
Oh, dear. What's your number 3?
Another game that I have tried to start, and it's a series that I have a rough history with at the moment. I have always loved it, and yet something about the gameplay isn't clicking for me. I'm going to try and beat this because there's a lot in this entry in this series that I'm very interested about.
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon Moon is what I'm going to choose as my third game. I usually try to pick one handheld game that I can play when I'm not at home.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm traveling to and from work, if I'm on a break, if I'm on my lunch break, I can play for 20 minutes each day. That all adds up.
Yeah.
And if I can do that outside of my relaxation time, then all the better.
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon Moon is a game that I tried and didn't get far, and then I tried again and got a little further, and then lost interest.
You're just going to have to learn to sacrifice your Pokemon Go time.
I'm going to have to. Pokemon Moon, I have tried to play in two different ways. One with pseudo Nuzlocke rules, only catching the first Pokemon I can get, which meant I didn't have a variety team, which meant I got bored, which meant I stopped playing. So that was my own fault.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second time, it just didn't quite engage me the same way I'd hoped. Since then, you and I have watched the entirety of Pokemon Sun and Moon, which is available on Netflix here in Australia. And wowee, that's probably one of my favourite Pokemon anime series ever.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I know these characters, know these Pokemon, I want a Togedemaru of my own. It has sparked that flame back, lit up like a Charmander's tail underneath me, that I want to try and beat Pokemon Moon. And it's a lengthier one again, maybe about a 28, 30-hour game. But if I can chip away at it throughout the whole of February, little bits here and there, I reckon I can do it. So Pokemon Moon is my third game for 4 in Feb 2019.
Nice.
And if Togedemaru is only in Pokemon Sun, I'm going to be furious.
For me, my third game for 4 in Feb is on the Switch. I wanted to have something on another console, and I figured I'd go with one of my favourite Nintendo characters ever, Kirby Star Allies. Yes. So it'll be weird though, because that game I think is designed to be played with friends, but I'll be playing it solo.
Yeah, we did buy it specifically to play with a certain group of friends, but then I don't think we ever did.
No.
So I believe it may only be the only Switch cartridge we've bought that we haven't actually played. So you'll be doing our money expenditure report a great benefit by actually beating it, so it won't be a waste of money.
There you go.
You're
You're welcome.
for your sacrifice.
I'll just inhale all my enemies. That's how you win, right? Yeah.
Now, this is a game that, like you said, you can play co-op. So maybe if you need a hand every now and again to get past a certain boss or an obstacle, you could call on your husband to help, and then I'll get partial credits. Then I can have 5 in Feb. No, I'm just kidding. But I am here to help.
It's only if you go from start to finish with me that you get credit.
Oh,
Yeah.
But I want to now.
I was considering putting Overcooked on this and
No.
making us both do that
No.
together, because we still haven't finished. We haven't unlocked everything yet. Mel and Steve are very irritated with us because they wanted us to be ready for another challenge. And I wonder if you've deliberately avoided finishing this game so you can never be challenged by them again.
I have no doubt that they would wipe the floor with us in that game like we are a tomato that's been dropped. But it's...
Why would you wipe the floor with a dropped tomato? Because ew.
No, we're the tomato that's been dropped on the floor, so they've wiped the floor
Oh.
to clean up the mess that we are. It didn't make sense. You didn't have to elaborate on it, and I was hoping to get away with it.
If it
But
weren't
no.
for you meddling kids.
Exactly.
So, okay, number 4, mister. What is your final game for Feb?
Well, I've had a lot that has wanted to qualify in my 4 in Feb, and I decided to play something that I missed the first time around. I've mentioned this on the podcast when I asked for everyone's input on our social media, and I wanted to make sure that since I was a boy who grew up with the Sega consoles and missed out on the Super Nintendo era, I wanted to put a Super Nintendo game on there because I have bought them in the Mini SNES Classic. And so I made a poll on Twitter. I put a picture on our Facebook page at The Gaming Lovers. for everyone to vote. Super Metroid, Secret of Mana, Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, or Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars. Which of those 4 games I would add to my 4 in Feb? And the winner, in a landslide, Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past,
No surprise there.
will be my 4th game played in Feb. A game that is a masterpiece of its era, a game that stands the test of time, and a game that I've never played. And I'm looking forward to filling in one of the remaining gaps in my Legend of Zelda timeline.
So, all up, do you know roughly how long it takes to beat each of those games?
Legend of Zelda, I believe, said about 16 to 18. Oxenfree is about 3 to 4, which is nice and easy.
Mm-hmm.
Kingdom Hearts is about 28, 30. And Pokemon's a bit longer, but I can spread it out over the whole month in handheld mode. So that's about 30-something. So it's an ambitious month, let's put it that way. I try to keep it usually about a 12 to 14 on average per game. I've blown well past that, so we will see if I have the dedication to the cause for 4 in Feb. Everyone loves a good underdog story, and since I failed completely last year, I thought, that's it. I'm going to show them what I can do. I'm going to make up for lost ground and not pick the same games again because that would be too embarrassing.
Yes. Well, my 4th game for Feb is my biggest, and it's going to be the one that I'll be chipping it away like slowly throughout the course of the month. Or who knows, maybe I'll get addicted to it and devour it in a couple of days.
Knowing you, it's entirely possible. I don't even know what the game is, and I believe it's true.
I will be playing God of War.
Oh, God of War.
Yes. So you've played it. I've seen bits of the game when you played it, but I very deliberately stayed away from like any major story points, so that way when I finally got around to playing it, it would be pretty fresh.
What is it about God of War that has caught your interest?
Aside from it winning Game of the Year last year.
Well, I suppose that's a slight point in its direction. Because this is a game series that you were horrified at me playing early on with the other games in the series, which were ultra-violent. Now, the games...
They're a bit cartoony now when you look back at them.
Yeah. The game has changed its style. But are you still a bit afraid of what may be lurking?
You did assure me that I would be able to handle the level of gore and violence. So I don't think it'll be any worse than, playing, say, The Witcher or Red Dead or even Inquisition and stuff like that, or Mass Effect, when you use carnage and they explode in front of you. So
Disgusting.
I can handle a certain level of it. It tends to be horror games that love to be ultra realistic with their gore. That's what makes my stomach curl.
Yep.
So I wasn't sure how well I would do this, but from what you've said and the little bits that I've seen, I think I'll be okay. If not, I'm going to fail.
Well, it's also got a cracking good story and
Yes.
good characters and
That'll
great
carry me
worlds to
through.
explore. So I'm sure you will have a great time with God of War.
Looking forward to that one.
I'm liking your 4 in Feb.
I think I've got a good mix. I've got, the kiddish kind of game with Kirby. There's a bit of classic Nintendo in there. Got a PC game. I've got my Vita game for mobility. Not that I need it as much as you do. And then God of
The
War.
masterpiece.
Yes.
To round it out.
Exactly. I tell you what, though, there were so many other games I wanted to pick. I have tons on my backlog, but they're all such huge games that I couldn't have like 4 100-hour-long games. Just don't have enough time. Even with the flexibility that I have with my job, it's just not possible.
Many games like Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Shadow of War, the Mordor game sequel that I have not yet to play.
Persona Q.
Too many.
So many.
Just too many games.
But, this, at the very least, we can chip away at these games that are on our backlog, and then maybe in March we can move on to something else a little beefier and work our way through other stuff on our backlog too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the Gaming Goals has been helping us with, really, this whole time we've been doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Has certainly motivated us to keep playing things and not... I think for me especially, it's kind of given me a kick up the butt of, hey, don't keep playing the same games, otherwise all they hear about is Mass Effect Dragon Age, Mass Effect Dragon Age.
Wake up, get up and get out there.
Yes. Talk about something different. So that helps motivate me, I think, this podcast and also things like this challenge, 4 and Feb, to do something a little bit different, try things outside the wheelhouse and outside the comfort zone. And, if we don't finish it, no biggie, but at least you try. And I think that's the key. So please feel free to join us on the 4 and Feb challenge. Let us know if you are. Send us pictures of what games you are interested in trying to beat this month, whether it's on Twitter or on Facebook. We would love to know if you're going to do the 4 and Feb challenge with us.
I love it. Every year I have a great time as we have this mutual understanding that, yes, we will have meals together, but apart from that, we're probably going to be in separate ends of the house on separate TVs playing separate games, and we have this great understanding, and it's wonderful. I'm looking forward to it, and if we do get through the 4 in Feb, there's always room for more.
Mm-hmm.
More in Feb.
Could be 5 in Feb.
We'll have to wait and see how...
15 in Feb.
That's ambitious. We'll have to see how we go. But for the meantime, let's talk about our gaming goals. Still got a couple days, a scarce few days left. Freedom. What are you going to do for the rest of January? And then what are you targeting first in your 4 in Feb 2019?
Okay. So obviously I'll be playing Mass Effect 2. And enjoying that. And I don't know what I want to play first. A lot of that comes down to what mood I'm in.
I'm seeing this as you enjoying your favourite home-cooked meal before you get taken out to strange restaurants where you won't know if you like the taste of it.
Yes.
I love it.
Try to finish Mass Effect 2 before February starts. I think I could do it.
That's more ambitious than some of your 4 in Feb goals.
I reckon I could, though.
All right, what are you targeting first? As soon as the 1st of February rolls around, what's the first game that's going to be put on the hot seat?
Maybe Kirby.
Just get a nice short one out of the way?
Yeah, I think get that started, and just because I'm not sure how well I'm going to like it. So I might need your help. We will see. So I think I'll look at that one first.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Well, you're targeting the small ones first to clear room for the big ones, whereas I usually try and target the big ones so I can weigh up how much to use my spare time at the end of the month. I'm probably going to pick either Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep HD plus Ultra Remix EX plus 2 Alpha or The Legend of Zelda Link to the Past. One of those two will get the first shot.
Mm-hmm.
And they're probably the two lengthier games on my list.
I wonder, though, if you'd want to save Kingdom Hearts closer to the end so that way you could use that to go straight into a new Kingdom Hearts game.
Straight into it. I still have like 3 games to play in that series. It never ends.
You're going to be playing Kingdom Hearts 3 in a couple of years' time and you're 4 in Feb in like 2022.
Oh, I was caught unawares.
You've only had how many years of delays?
It never felt like it was coming. It didn't feel like I had to get through these sequels.
Oh dear. In the interim, though, before you start Kingdom Hearts plus Ultra, that's what I'm calling it now, what else are you going to be doing before Feb starts?
100% I want to try and beat Resident Evil 2.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether that means just completing the run as Claire Redfield, which I've chosen to play as first, or to do the second run as well with Leon, which then combines to get the full ending.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see if I can make it through one or both of those. But that's what I'm going to be playing to the best of my abilities.
There you go.
I love it so much.
We've got our work cut out for us. Be sure to let us know if you're joining us for the 4 in Feb challenge. Hit us up at thegaminglovers.com or on social media. Until next time.
We got games to play. We can't hang around here making a farewell on a podcast. Let's get moving.
Yeah, I got to get back to Garrus.
That's not what I wanted to hear. Chowski, y'all.
Sayonara.
Don't be sexy.
Thanks for listening to the Gaming Lovers Podcast. For more episodes or to watch some live stream gaming, visit thegaminglovers.com.